The clock on the palace wall showed 11:47 p.m. when Jonathan heard the footsteps. He had been standing guard outside the East Wing corridor for 6 hours straight, his boots aching, his eyes heavy with fatigue. Ugh, but those footsteps made him freeze. They were wrong. Too quiet. Too careful. Jonathan had served as a royal guard for 12 years. He knew every sound this palace made at night, the soft hum of the heating system, the distant clatter of kitchen staff finishing their shift, the polite shuffle of senior staff walking to their quarters. These footsteps were different. Someone was trying not to be heard. He turned his head slowly, pretending to adjust his collar. Through the corner of his eye, he saw a figure moving along the shadowed wall near the private library. The person wore dark clothing, not the usual palace uniform. Jonathan's pulse quickened. Before we continue with what happened next, if you're enjoying this story and want more emotional true stories like this one, please hit that subscribe button. It truly helps us bring you more incredible real-life moments. Jonathan's training kicked in. He couldn't shout. Not yet. The royal family was sleeping just 2 corridors away. Any alarm could create panic. He needed to see who this was and what they were doing. He moved silently toward the library entrance. The door stood slightly open. Thin beam of light escaped from inside, sweeping across the floor like a searching finger. Someone had a flashlight. Jonathan's hand moved to his radio, but then he heard voices. Low, urgent whispers. More than one person was inside. His mind raced through possibilities. Thieves. Impossible. The palace security was among the best in the world. Staff members. But why would they sneak around at midnight with flashlights? He pressed himself against the wall and listened. You certain these are the right files? A woman's voice, tense and sharp. Yes. 3rd cabinet from the left. The household expense reports from the last 6 months? We need to be quick. If anyone sees us, no one will. The guards change positions at midnight. We have time. Jonathan felt ice in his stomach. These weren't thieves looking for jewels or art. They were after documents, palace records. And they knew the guard rotation schedule. That meant these were staff members, people with access, people who knew how the palace worked. But why would palace staff steal their own records? He pulled out his phone carefully, recording their voices. He needed proof before he acted. Whatever was happening here was bigger than a simple break-in. Then he heard something that made his blood run cold. Once we destroy these, there's no evidence. The prince will never know what we've been doing. The prince. They were talking about Prince William. Jonathan's hand tightened on his phone. He had to make a decision. Confront them now, or wait and see what else they revealed. If he burst in too soon, he might not understand the full picture. But if he waited too long, they might destroy whatever evidence they were after. The flashlight beam suddenly swung toward the door. Jonathan pulled back, holding his breath. Did you hear something? No. You're paranoid. Just grab the files and let's go. Jonathan heard filing cabinet drawers sliding open. Papers rustling, the quiet tier of documents being removed. He had to act. But in the next moment, everything changed. A voice echoed down the corridor behind him. Strong, commanding, and unmistakable. Jonathan, what's happening here? Prince William stood 20 feet away, dressed in casual clothes, his face filled with concern and confusion. The whispering inside the library stopped instantly. Prince William walked toward Jonathan with quick, purposeful steps. Even in a simple sweater and jeans, he carried the unmistakable presence of royalty. But his expression was not one of authority. It was genuine concern. Your Highness, Jonathan whispered urgently, there are people inside the library. Staff members. They're taking documents about household expenses. They said your name. William's face hardened. For a moment, the young man disappeared, and the future king emerged. His jaw set, his eyes focused with sharp intelligence. How many? William asked quietly. At least 2, maybe more. William nodded once. Then, without hesitation, he walked toward the library door.
Your Highness.
Wait, Jonathan started to protest, but William raised one hand. I need to see who it is, William said firmly.
Nice.
Stay behind me. He pushed the door open. The library flooded with light as William flipped the switch. 3 people stood frozen near the old oak filing cabinets. 2 women and 1 man, all dressed in dark clothes. 1 woman held a stack of folders. The man had a small bag half filled with papers. Jonathan recognized them immediately. Margaret Stone, the senior household accountant. David Fletcher, assistant to the estate manager. And Rebecca Holt, who worked in the household purchasing department. All 3 stared at William with expressions of pure horror. "Your Highness," Margaret stammered, her face draining of color. We can explain?" "I certainly hope so," William said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Because right now it appears that 3 members of my household staff are stealing documents at midnight." "We're not stealing," David said quickly. His voice shook. "We were just organizing. William stepped forward. "With flashlights in the dark? At midnight?" No one answered. Jonathan watched the scene unfold, his heart pounding. In 12 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. Palace staff were vetted carefully. They were loyal, dedicated people who took pride in their work. This kind of behavior was unthinkable. William walked to the filing cabinet and looked at the scattered papers. He picked up 1 folder and opened it. His face remained neutral, but Jonathan saw his eyes move quickly across the pages. "Household expenses," William said quietly. "Vendor payments, supply purchases." He looked up at the 3 staff members. "Why are these so interesting at midnight?" Margaret's hands trembled. The folders she held began to slip. Papers fluttered to the floor. "Please, Your Highness," she said, her voice breaking. "We were trying to fix it before anyone noticed." "Fix what?" William's voice remained steady, but Jonathan heard the edge in it now. Rebecca, the youngest of the 3, suddenly burst into tears. "We didn't take any money," she said desperately. "We never stole anything. We made mistakes. Big mistakes. We were trying to hide them before the quarterly audit." William's expression shifted slightly, not softening exactly, but growing more complex. "What kind of mistakes?" David stepped forward. He looked exhausted, defeated. "Over the past 6 months, we've been approving purchases from certain vendors without proper verification. The invoices looked legitimate. The companies seemed real. We processed payments according to protocol. But," William prompted, 3 weeks ago, I discovered that 5 of those vendors don't actually exist," David continued. "The invoices were forgeries. Someone created fake companies, submitted false bills, and we paid them. Over £200,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. Jonathan felt his stomach drop. £200,000 of royal household money, stolen through fraud. And these 3 staff members had unknowingly helped make it happen. William set down the folder carefully. "Why didn't you report this immediately?" "Because we were terrified," Margaret said, her voice rising with emotion. "We're the ones who approved those payments. We're responsible. Even though we didn't know they were fake, even though we followed every procedure we were taught, we failed. We let thieves steal from the royal household, we thought." She paused, wiping her eyes. "We thought if we could find the proof, identify who did this, and recover the money quietly, then maybe we wouldn't lose everything." William looked at each of them in turn. The library felt smaller now, the air thick with tension and fear. Jonathan stood by the door, still processing what he had just heard. £200,000, stolen through forgery and deception, and 3 loyal staff members trying desperately to fix the problem alone. William pulled out a chair from the nearby reading table and sat down. The gesture surprised everyone. He motioned for the 3 staff members to sit as well. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "From the beginning." Margaret, David, and Rebecca exchanged glances. Then Margaret began to speak, her voice steadier now, but still trembling with emotion. "It started in June," she said. "A new vendor appeared in our system. Hampton and Sons Supplies. They provided cleaning materials, linens, basic household goods. Their prices were competitive. Their paperwork was perfect. They had all the proper registration numbers, tax identification, everything we normally verify. Asterisk, we processed their first invoice for £8,000, David added. Then more came. Monthly deliveries. Every invoice properly formatted. Every delivery receipt signed by staff members. Which staff members? William asked. Rebecca spoke up. Different people. Junior staff mostly. Footmen, housekeepers, kitchen assistants. They all confirmed receiving the deliveries. We had no reason to doubt anything. William nodded slowly. Continue. Over 6 months, we paid Hampton & Sons nearly £90,000, Margaret said. Then 3 other similar companies appeared: Brighton Household Services, Thames Valley Provisions, Chester & Webb Limited. All with perfect paperwork, all confirmed by staff signatures. And all fake, William said. Yes, David confirmed. I only discovered it by accident. I was preparing documents for an unrelated audit. Decided to contact Hampton & Sons directly to verify their tax information. The phone number was disconnected. I checked the business address. It's an empty office building in Leeds that's been vacant for 2 years. I helped him investigate the others, Rebecca added. Same story. Fake addresses. Disconnected phones. When we contacted the business registration office, we learned that while the companies were technically registered, the registration information was fraudulent. Someone created an entire network of phantom vendors. Jonathan listened, piecing together the picture. This wasn't amateur theft. This was sophisticated, organized fraud. The delivery receipts, William said thoughtfully. You said staff members signed for deliveries? Were there actual deliveries? That's the clever part, Margaret said bitterly. Yes, there were deliveries. Real boxes, real supplies. But when we went back and checked, we realized the deliveries were much smaller than what the invoices claimed. An invoice for £5,000 worth of supplies, but only about £500 actually delivered. The difference was pure fraud. And the staff members who signed the receipts? William asked. They confirmed receiving boxes, David said. They had no idea the deliveries were fraudulent. They were told to sign for packages, and they did. They're not accountants. They had no reason to question anything. William was quiet for a long moment. Jonathan watched him think, his expression focused and serious. Why were you taking these documents tonight? William finally asked. We wanted to build a complete case, Margaret said. All the invoices, all the receipts, all the evidence. We were planning to go to the police tomorrow. But we were terrified that if anyone saw us gathering the documents, they'd think we were destroying evidence. We thought if we did it at night quietly, no one would know until we could present everything properly. That was incredibly foolish, William said, but his tone wasn't harsh. It was almost sad, Rebecca said, fresh tears streaming down her face. We've been so stupid. We should have reported it immediately. But we were scared. We've worked here for years. This is our life. And we let this happen under our watch. William stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the palace grounds stretched into darkness, security lights creating pools of yellow glow across the lawns. You're right about one thing, William said, his back still turned. You should have reported this immediately. The moment David discovered the fraud, he should have come directly to senior management or to me. The 3 staff members looked down at their hands. But William continued. Turning to face them, I understand why you didn't. William walked back to the table and sat down again. Jonathan noticed something change in his posture. The royal authority remained. But now, there was something else. Understanding. Maybe even compassion. Do you know why I was awake tonight? William asked. Why I was walking these corridors at midnight. No one answered. 'Cause I couldn't sleep, William said simply. I've been reviewing household accounts for the past 3 weeks. Not because I suspected fraud, but because I wanted to understand where money was actually going. I wanted to see the real picture of how this household operates. He picked up one of the scattered invoices from the floor. And I found irregularities, he continued. Nothing obvious. Just small things that didn't quite add up. Patterns that seemed unusual. I was planning to ask for a full internal audit next week. He looked at Margaret, David, and Rebecca. You 3 would have been questioned, thoroughly. And if you had these documents hidden or destroyed, you would have looked extraordinarily guilty. Margaret closed her eyes. We never thought of that, William said. Because you were acting from fear, not from reason. Fear makes people do things that make situations worse, not better. Jonathan shifted his weight, his legs aching from standing so long, but he didn't dare move. This was extraordinary. A prince conducting an investigation in the middle of the night, and not with anger or coldness, but with careful, thoughtful questioning. Here's what I don't understand, William said. These fake companies operated for 6 months. They submitted regular invoices. Someone had to be coordinating this from inside the palace. Someone had to be arranging the fake deliveries, getting staff to sign receipts, ensuring everything looked legitimate. We've been trying to figure that out, David said eagerly. We've gone through every signature, every delivery date, every detail. But we can't find a pattern. Different staff members signed different receipts. Different departments received different deliveries. There's no single person who connects all of it, Les William said slowly. It's someone who can move freely through all departments. Someone who has access to staff schedules, delivery schedules, and administrative systems. The implications settled over the room like frost. An estate manager, Rebecca whispered, or someone in senior household administration. William nodded grimly. Jonathan, you've been standing guard in this palace for years. You see things? You notice patterns. Have you observed anything unusual? Anyone behaving strangely? Jonathan stepped forward, grateful to finally contribute. Your Highness, I've noticed that Mr. Edward Thornton has been working very late hours recently. He's the deputy estate manager. I've seen him in the administrative offices past midnight several times over the last few months. Working late isn't a crime, William said. No, Your Highness. But twice, I saw him leaving through the service entrance carrying large boxes. When I asked what they were, he said they were old files being moved to storage. But the boxes went into his personal car, not a palace vehicle. William's eyes sharpened. When was this? The first time was in August. The second was early October.
Margaret gasped.
Edward Thornton is the one who recommended Hampton & Sons to us. He said they were a reliable vendor he'd worked with at his previous position. The pieces suddenly clicked together in Jonathan's mind. A deputy estate manager would have perfect access. He'd know the purchasing procedures. He'd know which staff members to approach. He'd know how to make everything look legitimate. We need those boxes, William said decisively. Jonathan, do you know if Mr. Thornton is in the palace tonight? No, Your Highness. He left at 7 this evening. I saw him drive away. It was answered almost immediately. This is Prince William. I need you to secure all access to the Deputy Estate Manager's office immediately. No one enters or leaves. And I need Head of Palace Security to meet me in the East Wing Library right now. He ended the call and looked at Margaret, David, and Rebecca. You three are going to walk me through every single detail of these fraudulent transactions. Every invoice, every delivery, every signature. We're building a case tonight, but this time, we're doing it properly. Asterisk, within 20 minutes, the library had transformed into an investigation center. The head of Palace Security, Commander Richard Hayes, arrived with 2 senior officers. They spread the documents across the large reading table, organizing them by date and vendor. William rolled up his sleeves and worked alongside everyone, asking questions, making notes, connecting details. Jonathan watched in quiet admiration. This was leadership. Not distant or cold, but engaged and determined. The invoices are sophisticated, Commander Hayes said, examining one through a magnifying lens. Professional printing, watermarks, proper formatting. Whoever created these knew exactly what palace procurement documents should look like. Edward Thornton would know, Margaret said. He's been deputy estate manager for 3 years. Before that, he worked in procurement at 2 other major estates. William pulled up information on his phone. According to his employment record, he left his previous position somewhat abruptly. No scandal, but the departure was unexpected. He looked at Commander Hayes. Can we check with his former employers? At this hour, it would be difficult, Hayes replied. But first thing tomorrow morning, absolutely. We might not need to wait, David said suddenly. He was staring at a spreadsheet on his laptop. I've been comparing the delivery dates with Edward's calendar. Every single fraudulent delivery happened on a day when Edward was personally overseeing the service entrance. He volunteers for that duty regularly. Says he likes to ensure quality control. Rebecca leaned over to look. That can't be coincidence. It's not, William said. He was ensuring his fake deliveries went smoothly. Probably intercepting the real boxes, confirming the signatures, and making sure everything appeared normal. Jonathan remembered something. Your Highness, in August when I saw Mr. Thornton with those boxes, he seemed nervous. When I asked about them, he became defensive. Said it was none of my concern, and that I should focus on my guard duties. Did you report that? Commander Hayes asked. Jonathan hesitated, feeling embarrassed. No, sir. He's senior staff. I thought perhaps I was being oversensitive. You weren't, William said firmly. And from now on, I want every guard in this palace to understand something clearly. Rank doesn't matter when something feels wrong. If you see something suspicious, you report it immediately. No exceptions. Yes, Your Highness, Jonathan said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Margaret was going through bank records now. The payments all went to legitimate-looking business accounts. But look at this. She pointed to a pattern. Within 3 days of each payment being processed, the money was transferred out to various offshore accounts. Then the trails go cold. Money laundering, Commander Hayes said. Standard procedure for this type of fraud. The money disappears into untraceable channels. Not completely untraceable, William said. We'll need to involve financial investigators, the police, possibly international agencies, if the money went overseas. Rebecca looked terrified. This is going to be enormous, isn't it? A scandal involving the royal household. William met her gaze steadily. Yes, it will make headlines. There will be investigations, questions, media attention. But here's what else is going to happen. We're going to be completely transparent. We're going to show exactly how this fraud occurred, how we discovered it, and what we're doing to prevent it from ever happening again. He stood and addressed all 3 staff members directly. You made mistakes. You should have reported this immediately. But you didn't commit fraud. You didn't steal money. You were deceived by someone who exploited your trust and the systems you worked within. That doesn't excuse the delay in reporting, but it does matter. What will happen to us? Margaret asked quietly. That depends, William said honestly. There will be an investigation. You'll be questioned extensively. Your actions over the past 3 weeks will be examined, but I will personally ensure that the investigators understand the full context of what happened. I will make certain that your genuine attempt to fix this problem, however misguided, is taken into account. Tears flowed freely now from all 3 staff members. Relief mixed with fear, mixed with gratitude. Thank you, Your Highness, David said. His voice choked with emotion. Part 6, the investigation stretched through the night and into the early morning hours. By 5 a.m., they had built a comprehensive case against Edward Thornton. The evidence was overwhelming. Pattern after pattern connecting him to every fraudulent transaction, Commander. Hayes made the call just after 6 a.m. Police arrived at Edward Thornton's home to find him packing. 2 suitcases sat by the door, a plane ticket to Switzerland on the table, He was arrested without incident. William stayed through all of it. When the police led Thornton through the palace for formal questioning, William insisted on being present. Jonathan heard later that Thornton had confessed within hours. The fake companies, the false invoices, the carefully orchestrated deliveries, all of it. He had stolen nearly £230,000 over 6 months. The money was gone, filtered through offshore accounts. Recovery would be difficult, perhaps impossible, but the fraud had been stopped, and the person responsible would face justice. 3 days later, William called a meeting with all household staff. Jonathan stood at attention along the back wall as the prince addressed over 100 employees. "I want to talk about trust," William began. "This household operates because of trust. Trust that everyone here is working with integrity. Trust that systems are followed properly. Trust that when something goes wrong, people will speak up." He paused, looking around the room. Recently, that trust was violated. One person, in a position of authority, exploited our systems to commit fraud. But this situation also revealed something else. 3 staff members, when they discovered what was happening, were so afraid of losing their positions that they didn't report it immediately. They tried to fix it alone. Margaret, David, and Rebecca stood among the crowd, their faces anxious. "I understand that fear," William continued, "but I want to make something absolutely clear. In this household, honesty and transparency matter more than anything else. If you make a mistake, you report it. If you discover a problem, you report it. If something doesn't feel right, you report it. There will never be punishment for bringing problems to light, only for hiding them." He looked directly at Margaret, David, and Rebecca. These 3 individuals made errors in judgment. They should have come forward immediately. But their fundamental loyalty to this household was never in question. They kept their positions, and they will continue to serve, with additional training and with the understanding that this trust cannot be broken again. The relief on their faces was profound. Jonathan felt pride swell in his chest. This was the kind of leader people would follow anywhere. Fair, firm, and genuinely caring about those who served. After the meeting, William approached Jonathan privately. "You showed excellent judgment that night," William said. "You didn't panic. You gathered information. You made the right call about when to involve me. That's exactly the kind of awareness we need from our security staff." "Thank you, Your Highness," Jonathan said. "I was just doing my duty." "You were doing more than that," William replied. "You were thinking, and that matters." Over the following weeks, the palace implemented new procedures, enhanced verification for all vendors, multiple approval levels for payments, regular audits, whistleblower protections clearly outlined for all staff. The story leaked to the media, of course. Headlines screamed about fraud in the royal household. But William's transparency worked. He gave a clear, honest account of what happened. He explained the new protections being put in place. He took responsibility while making sure the facts were accurate. Public opinion, surprisingly, remained largely positive. People respected the honest handling of a difficult situation. Jonathan continued his guard duties, but with a new sense of purpose. He understood now that his role wasn't just about standing in corridors or checking doors. It was about vigilance, about paying attention to the small details that others might miss. One evening, 3 months after that midnight confrontation, Jonathan was walking past the library again. The door stood open, and he saw William inside, reading through documents. William looked up and smiled. "Evening, Jonathan? Still keeping watch?" "Always, Your Highness," good William said. "I sleep better knowing it." Jonathan smiled and continued his rounds. The palace was quiet, secure, safe. And if anything unusual ever happened again, Jonathan knew exactly what to do. Not because of rules or procedures, but because a prince had shown him that doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, was always worth it. The clock on the wall showed 11:47 p.m., the same time everything had changed 3 months ago. But tonight, the footsteps in the corridors were all familiar, all accounted for, all safe. Jonathan smiled to himself and continued his watch, protecting not just walls and doors, but the trust that held everything together. That he had learned was what real security meant.